Good afternoon and welcome. You're listening live to Heart-to-Heart, a program which aims to help you understand and to become your loving self. I'm Dr. Mitra Rashidian. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and a certified sexologist in full-time private practice located in beautiful Encino, California. Offering you this program at KMET 1490 AM ABC News Radio, along with my business partner, colleague, and best friend, Dr. Robert Jaffe.
Thank you for the introduction and welcome everybody. I'm Dr. Robert Jaffe, also a licensed marriage and family therapist and a certified hypnotherapist. And we're here today to talk about something near and dear to our hearts, and that is our sexuality and our intimate relationships.
Exactly.
And so you specialize in that. You have a great deal of information. And each time we meet, we talk about it in this hour. You're able to share with me and with the audience some of what you've learned. And it's very interesting, and it's also very important that we understand ourselves and our partners in this most important way, which is our bodies and our sexuality.
Exactly. So before we go on into the details of our program today, I'd like to invite you to please call us and share your ideas about your sexuality, about, what are your concerns, what are the do's and don'ts that you know about, what is your value system about it, how do you understand, sexual health, and what do you think that entails? So I like to hear from you. We like to hear from you. Our phone number here live is 951-922-3532. Also, if you want, you can always contact us privately as well if you can't feel comfortable being online and talk about, your presenting question. You may also visit us at YouTube at sorry, I'm going to start again.
La 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 la.
It's heart-2-heart.online/YouTube. So, yes, Dr. Robert Jaffe.
Yes, ma'am.
Human sexuality is a mystery of life. And then again, is one of our basic needs.
It is.
Right?
It is.
It's next to surviving, it's next to breathing, it's next to everything that we do. Sexuality is a part of us.
Mm-hmm.
However, we see that across centuries because of political issues, religion, and many other factors in society, human sexuality has been put in a category of taboo, not talking about it, even though everybody has, most adults have sex, right?
Well, not just to have sex, but everybody has a sexual urge.
Right.
And of course, that differs from person to person. But
Right.
but the other thing that we brought this up before, so I'll just comment on it again, is that we are all sexual creatures.
Yes, we are.
And we've learned through study that boys can actually have erections as early as in the womb, and girls can actually lubricate. They've measured it as early as 3 days and perhaps even sooner.
Yeah.
So it's very unfortunate that we've made that part of us, that's an important part of us, such a taboo.
Right. Well, there are reasons for that. Primarily, I was listening to Bill Maher program the other day, and then he made a very good point, and I'm glad that he shared that during his program, that when we want to scare people from concepts, they bring in religion.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they want to sell something for highest profit, they bring sex in. Right. So sex has been one of those factors that's been used and misused, against the well-being of human being.
As has religion.
Yes, all of that. So.
Yes.
So we want to know that what are some of the challenges that continues to appear in society, right? We think that, oh my God, what is this topic? Sex. So people talk about sex. We see it online. We see it on porn movies. We see it in cinema. Even a 3-year-old knows what is sex. So how come we're not talking about sex, right? What is
Right.
this, right? But then again, I want to say that that's only a small fraction of people that actually, follow those things. And majority of people still have their own reluctance and their own reservations and their own fear and the shyness and the feeling guilt and the sinfulness about talking about sex and any problem that they experience along with that, right? So we know historically that female sexuality has been definitely more taboo than male sexuality. And then, so one would think, oh, okay, we are in 21st century, so how this is, similar to old times, and we are not living in old times. Well, we are not living in old times based on the technology that we are using, based on the science that we are using. But when it comes to the ideology of people, there are factors that we see has not made significant or substantial changes. Progress, right? And one of these areas is, female sexual health, right? I was going on my favorite website about, sexual health news. The very first one that I saw is, female sexual health, why women should not be hesitant to talk about their bodies, right? Well, there are many good points in this article that why women should not be hesitant. So that tells me women are hesitant, in fact, right? So that's the translation of that,
Right.
If that doesn't exist, then the question wouldn't come up, right? And not only I see that, across different research papers and across different articles and across different websites that they make reference to human sexuality, I see that in my practice as well, right? I see that when I ask a female patient and whether they are, regardless of their background, there is a pause about their sexuality. They're not upfront about their sexuality. They're not open. They have to think about it, right?
They have to think about it because they have to decide what they feel comfortable sharing, and also they have to decide what they believe is appropriate. Right. And so they can't. So they're censoring during that pause. Right.
And then so that tells me that there is a sense of self-judgment or fear of whether I'm going to be judging them.
Or both.
Right. Or both. Right. There is a element of shame. There is an element of guilt. There is an element of lack of awareness. Right. There is an element of lack of education. There is an element of what's there about my sexuality to talk about. I don't feel anything. I don't have an issue. I don't believe I have an issue. So when I see a client like that, then that's a clear indication that they are so unfamiliar with their own sexuality, right? But then again, when we talk about sexual health, we're not just talking about act of sex.
And we're also not just talking about lack of disease.
Lack of disease.
Right.
Yes, exactly. So this article caught my attention, and I thought, this is a good topic to bring in today. I think this is a month. This is called a condom month, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Right. So,
okay.
So
works for me.
It works. I didn't say there's a sale on condoms.
Oh, I misunderstood. Okay. All right.
So anyway, it was surprising a little bit for me. I mean, even though I am myself involved in sex research and sexual health, I kind of paused myself. I said, my God, we are, in 21st century, and we are still on the same subject that existed 50 years ago, 100 years ago, prior to that, about female sexuality and the hesitant to talk about it.
Right.
Not only by women themselves, but also at the level of society. I mean, we think we have made progress. We think we have all the information we want to have, or we should have. But then again, we see that no, really, still we are way behind what we need to know
Yeah,
as female about bodies, about sexuality, and everything else related to that.
I'm just reminded of a TV show. I think it was in the '60s, and it was called "I Dream of Jeannie," and it was with the star was Barbara Eden, very attractive lady.
Yes.
And she would be dressed up in this genie costume, but then there was a big debate as to whether her belly button could be shown or not. And at first they said no, and so she had to have the pantaloons that she had on above her belly button. And then finally they got very risque and allowed her to show her belly button.
I remember that show, actually. I remember that in some of her shows she didn't have her belly button out.
Yes.
And in some of them she did have it. In some of her shows she had that mini jacket on. In some of her shows she didn't have that. Right. But what's interesting that, her breast was okay to be shown.
Well, they didn't show her naked breast.
They didn't show her naked breast, but then again, compared to the attitude of sexuality at that time, she was revealing.
Yeah, she was, yes.
She was revealing. Her lacy and see-through sheer pants was revealing, so they wanted for her to be sexual.
Right.
But then again, they didn't want to say that she is actually sexual. Well, as a genie, she could be that way.
Yes.
So, but not as a human being. So.
Right, exactly. and of course, none of the shows had anything to do with sex.
None of the show had anything to do with sex.
Yeah,
exactly.
Even though she called the guy who brought her out of the bottle a master.
Right. And then we learn later on that she was actually, in love with the master. Right. So, but then again, anyway, so female sexuality, at some point, all the time, obviously, in so many ways, has been used for, like I said at the beginning of the program, if they want to sell something for high profit, they add some element of sex to it. As this is a good example.
Right.
So let's see, what are we talking about here in more details? Basically, sexual health overall refers to factors that affect sexual function and reproduction, right? So an impaired sexual health affects physical, mental, and emotional health of a person, which leads to a poor self-image and, of course, relationship issues, right? So, but then again, there is also, a matter of lack of disease.
Right.
Like you pointed out to that one. So, sexual health doesn't mean that if a female doesn't have any sexual transmitted infections, then she has a sexual health, she has a good sexual health, right? That's not the case. So as we see, it's about sexual function. So within sexual function we have sexual disorders, right? Some of the main ones are desire, arousal, orgasmic, and pain disorders, right? So, and some women, I have actually, interviewed them myself, where they have said they have been sexual and never had an orgasm. And they say, well, that's okay.
Well, yeah, if they've never had an orgasm, they would think that it would be okay. But then once they've had an orgasm, then they would go, maybe it's not so okay.
Maybe it's not. They have no idea what they have missed, I guess.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
Okay. So let's talk about more about this amazing topic right after our commercial break.
Okay, we'll see you soon.
See you. Welcome back to our commercial break. This is Heart-to-Heart program at KMET 1490 AM, ABC News Radio. Dr. Mitra and Dr. Robert here talking about human sexuality and why women should not be hesitant to talk about their bodies and sexuality. We like to hear from you about this topic and how do you relate to this and what has been your experience? What do you know about the experience of others? So our phone number here live is 951-922-3532. You may also visit us at YouTube, heart-2-heart.online/YouTube. And please introduce this program to those that you believe may benefit from this program. And we thank you for sharing your hour with us.
Okay.
Dr. Robert will come back.
Thank you.
So we were talking about what, entails in sexual health, what's included. So we know sexual function, and we were talking about women who do not have the experience of orgasm, and therefore they don't know what's the importance of orgasm.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the experiment part, they don't know what it feels like,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they don't know why they're not, having a satisfying sexual experience.
Yeah, and a lot of people, a lot of women who don't have orgasms, you find them saying, "Well, sex is nice, but I could sort of take it or leave it."
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And then that, of course, includes a group of female who have arousal problems,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
And those who have desire ones, right?
Mm-hmm.
So every one of them can relate and cause the next one. Basically, when we look at the curve, if a person doesn't have the desire, it's difficult to get to the point of arousal. You get to the point of arousal, it's difficult to get to the point of orgasm,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, and also along with that, comes, physical issues, comes mental and emotional issues, and not having a satisfying, sexual life and sexual experience ultimately doesn't make a woman feel good about herself. And we know that the first thing that is impacted as a result of that is self-esteem, self-worth, and ultimately, obviously, the big umbrella, hits the relationship badly.
Right.
So
yeah, if a woman doesn't feel good about herself, she's not going to be a happy camper.
Right.
And if she's not happy, that's definitely going to come out in the relationship.
Exactly. So we know these days that when we have a couple coming to see us, if they say they have relationship issues, we know for sure they have sexual issues. If they say they have sexual issues, we know for sure they have relationship issues.
Correct.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So
right.
even though they may not realize it,
mm-hmm.
right? So we know that both men and women are unaware about these consequences, which means there is a lack of maturity and knowledge related to sex and, contraception. We know that sexual health is not just about contraception and condoms. It is also ensuring that, people sexual needs are met in a healthy and in a positive way,
mm-hmm.
right? So like we said, people think that if they know how to do birth control, if they know how to use condom properly and what type to use to increase their level of protection, then they are taking care of sexual health. Where in fact, you and I know that there is more to it than just, being careful for pregnancy, right? There are many cultures, as well as part of, Western cultures, that the focus of female sexual health is only on reproductive part.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that, United States being a diverse country, and we know that also per research and including my research that culture, hunts people no matter where they go, their culture travels with them and stays with them, right? We know that among a diverse population in the United States, they are a group of people as citizens, as professionals, that they still focus and believe that female sexuality and sexual health is only limited to reproductive part of it,
mm-hmm.
right? And therefore, these women also, they have learned that about themselves. So during pregnancy, they are very careful, they eat properly, they know what to do, they know what may harm them. So they are on top of it when they are pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
However, when it comes to their intimate relationships, it's just that aspect of their life kind of goes in the dormant, and kind of they just become okay about whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So I think, and so maybe you can comment a little bit about why women's sexuality and women's bodies have been so taboo, and what that's about.
Well, control.
Mm-hmm.
It's about control. It's about controlling human nature. It's about dominating, what's believed to be, the dominant sex,
Mm-hmm.
the what can be dominated, and what keeps men's ego at the level that they want it to be. Uh, in general, we see that in countries, in nations where religion is the dominating control factor of the society, we see that more control on female sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So some of this has to go back to philosophies that was built around female safety years ago, like thousands of years ago. But then again, across history, we see that those sense of safety for women became a dominating factor of them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And especially in nations where patriarchy is the golden rule.
Mm-hmm.
Right? As a result, what happens? As a result, we see that when a female sexual health is only focused on reproductive care, eventually the health of woman goes down.
Mm-hmm.
Because other parts of her sexuality are not considered, and then a female, like I said, when the self-esteem goes down and the self-worth goes down and the problem in relationship begins, it impacts, we know about psychosomatic.
Right. Yeah.
So it does impact everything else. So across history, we see that women in general, especially in collective natures, we see that they age faster.
Mm-hmm.
They have more kids than Western women, because that's what they know how to be as female,
mm-hmm.
To just give birth to children.
Mm-hmm.
And that factor by itself, just deteriorates, their bodies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so the sex drive in men and women is very powerful.
Yes.
But if women are given the message and are expected to not have a strong sex drive, and to not be sexual, and to not want sex, and to not initiate sex, and to not talk about sex,
not ask for
sex, then those needs have to be repressed.
Right.
And that's what you're talking about. Right. is the repression. And so what that does is that affects the self-esteem and the self-worth of the woman.
Now, yes, that, and also, we all, sexual hormones, when they are not functioning at the normal level, right, that also causes physical problem and emotional problem for a female. When a female, feels sexual urges, but it's not able to recognize them, and is not able, therefore, to manage them and be able to stand up and be assertive about her sexuality, eventually, her body, becomes ill.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, and it comes out in the form of, you said psychosomatic, I would say psychogenic, because the symptoms are actually real symptoms.
They are real symptoms.
Yeah, so when women talk about headaches, when they talk about lower back aches, when they have depression and lethargy, these can be all symptoms of repression.
Yes. Yes, they are in some, there are some old poems, they come in the form of, jokes, they come in the form of varieties. One of them I can remember from my own hometown, that there was this female that she was ill. She was always ill. She complained of back pain. She complained of her, neck pain. She complained stomach pain. She complained about variety of aches and pain all over her body, right? And nobody could figure out what was going on with her. So she finally went to this female, local, somebody who was not a doctor, but she could do, wonders to relieve pain, right? And then so she checked her out, and of course there's a poem going on in this conversation, and I don't know the poem, so I'm just describing it. And then it's a very, very old story, very historical story. And then so the female, doctor or whomever we want to call her, check her out and then told her, well, I can't find anything, so tell me, where does it hurt, right? And then she told her in a poem, kind of a conversation, that certain sensitive part of her body hurts, right? And then so finally this woman told her, well, my dear, you need to get married, and then your problem will be over, right? So that was her way of saying to her that she needs to have sex,
right,
and she's lacking sex, right? So then she allowed her parents and her family to feel good about talking about sex. And finally she got married, and all of her illnesses went away after having a few sex. So I have heard a few of these examples from different nations, but I know that this one is for sure from mine. And I also remember that during wedding time, or when somebody proposed to somebody, other female would start singing that song for the new bride to be. That's why that she's getting married, because she wants sex, so they would make fun of her.
There's another story that's very similar to it, where the woman goes to the doctor and she complains about all of this, and the doctor says, well, I think the problem is in your genitals. And he says, I need to examine your genitals. So he's examining her genitals, and he starts stimulating her clitoris, and she has an orgasm. And he goes, well, how do you feel now? She goes, well, I feel great. And he goes, okay, well, come back in a month. And so she comes back in a month, and there's a line of 1,000 women to get to the doctor.
Yeah, I mean, we're laughing about this, we're making a joke out of it, but that's the reality. It is like, asking somebody to wrap up one foot and walk with one foot. How, I mean, that's the sexuality is a part of our lives. We cannot, and we cannot disqualify it. We cannot make it a sinful concept. We cannot be shameful about it. We cannot ignore it. I mean, it's like, not eating for a long time. People won't survive. I'm not suggesting that if people don't have proper sex or sex, they're going to die. But then again, they are going to be lacking what not having sex offers them as consequences.
Yes.
Right? So that's emotional and physical, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also not feeling good about oneself.
Right.
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 So these are not something to ignore. And especially in these countries where, the focus is only on reproductive care and not the joyfulness of sex, not on the sex drive, not on the, what's going on when people have sex. Because for a woman to become pregnant, she's going to have sex, or one would think that way, right? I'm not talking about artificial insemination, right? I'm talking about normal pregnancy, right? So, but when a woman doesn't understand her sexuality and she goes along through the process of getting pregnant, right? She doesn't feel good about herself. She wouldn't feel good about herself. She thinks like she's a device. She's a unit of producing a human being.
A function.
A function.
Right. Yeah.
That certainly doesn't feel good. So, what this article also suggests, that when women don't know about their body well, then how would they come out and get, themselves treated for certain conditions like STIs, UTIs, breast cancer, cervical cancers, among other, other things that they need to be diagnosed early. Exactly. So when a female is unaware of her genital area, and then uh, they can't, they are women, even in here in the United States, that they don't understand the sign and symptoms of urinary tract infection, UTI. They don't understand it.
Right.
Right. There are women that they believe that once they are sexually active, it's normal for them to have, genital itching and discharges and feeling uncomfortable. Right. They believe, oh, well, when a woman is sexually active, it's normal for them to feel this way. So they don't even share it with doctor. They even don't go to the doctor. They even don't know what to do with it, but they suffer and they live with the discomfort.
Yes. Yes, right? Absolutely.
Right. There are some young women that they even don't know how to take care of themselves when they have their menstrual period each month, right? They go through the emotions, they go through the pain, they go through the isolation, they go through the shame, they go through the guilt, fear of what if my brother or my father or somebody learns that, that they have their period, because that culture that still exists, despite the fact that we think, oh, well, this is United States and we are so advanced. Well, when it comes to sexuality, we are very, very, very much still, for the most part, we are backwards.
A lot of people are.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes, absolutely.
So, and of course, these women, it's not their fault because nobody sat down to educate them about how to have sex. Nobody sat down to teach them about what is female sexuality. But there are tons of books on reproductive care. There are tons of books on, how to get pregnant, what to do not to get pregnant, right? And then for STIs, well, don't have sex, or if you're having sex over a condom or, things like that. But about how to feel about yourself as a sexual woman, those we don't get educated about.
Right. Right. Yeah. And that's because that has to do with validating that a woman is a sexual being.
Yes.
And that means that the woman has power, and so if you take away the idea that the woman is a sexual being, then you take away power from her and leave her kind of isolated and victimized again in society by men.
Well, let's follow up with that after our commercial break.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay.
Good afternoon, and from our commercial break, Dr. Mitra, Dr. Albert here at Heart program at KMET 1490 AM ABC News Radio. Our phone number live here is 951-922-3532. And we have been talking about female sexual health issues today. And we were talking about that sexual health is not merely about the absence of disease, and also it's not just about reproductive care, but they are also about emotional and understanding of female sexuality as well, to say the least, right? So we were talking about that, how even in Western society, which seems to be the most modern area about human sexuality, there are still a good amount of women who are not really fully aware of their sexuality and what it really includes. So we talked about before commercial break about the lack of knowledge can be, a source of a woman contracting any form of sexual transmitted infection, urinary tract inflammation, not checking for going for their annual breast checkup so they can get breast cancer, not knowing about STIs, they can actually get, cervical cancers from HPV, for example, human papilloma virus. And then, if these things are not checked regularly and on time, the illness can make progress and then cause definitely even life-threatening situation. And that's really sad to see, because, you know, we have everything that we need to have in order to do enough an early prevention.
Yes.
And also provide education so these things doesn't happen to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the sad part, right?
Yes.
So we have enough knowledge, but we don't have the, what we don't have is the education and the awareness that how vital is to know about a female sexuality.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I mean, that's really the thing that, you know, so for those that I can help them, you know, I'm so happy to talk about women when, you know, they come in to see me and I talk to them about sexuality, and they said, you know, they never had a source for them to feel comfortable to ask their questions. And then once they start to ask questions, there is no end to the questions,
Mm-hmm.
which tells me, oh my God, you know, how many years, how many times that these women have kind of suppressed all those questions within them.
Right.
And how much suffering they have gone through
Mm-hmm.
because of that, because they didn't have a, you know, a reliable source of information.
Yeah.
Right?
And before the break, I was talking about subjugation of women, and how women's sexuality has been used to subjugate women, by way of saying that when a woman has sexual desire, or has or expresses her sexuality more openly, she's shamed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and she's called names. She's called slut, slattern. She's called, prostitute, a whore.
Well, honestly, that has been my own experience at the very beginning of my practice as a sexologist.
Yeah, and it's, and people do that unknowingly. Sometimes they do it knowingly, but usually they do it unknowingly because they've been acculturated to believe that about women and women's sexuality. And so women are taught at a very early age to be very, very modest, very demure, and not openly express their sexuality. And to feel shame if they do.
Right.
Yes. And so when you talk about sexual health, I think, of course, of the physical that you've been talking about, the STIs and STDs, but I also think a lot about the emotional cost. And what we alluded to before is that the sexual energy of a person and of a woman, when it gets repressed, can very easily be translated into psychogenic and psychosomatic illnesses.
Exactly.
Of which a lot of that can be cured if women feel better about their bodies, and better about their sexuality, and better about their sexual desires.
Right. Right. And when you talk about subjugating, you know, women when it comes to their sexuality, we have seen women, and I have seen them in my practice as well. I have seen them through interviews for research, that if a woman actually came forward and talked to whether, you know, her parents, even her partner, or some trusty person she thought they are trustworthy people, talk about the, you know, experience of her sexuality, problems, things that they were unknown for her,
Mm-hmm.
right? Things that they were new for her, and she didn't know where to go and how to find her answers. So she trusted, you know, for example, her partner, she trusted her parents, she trusted the sister, and so on, right? Only, you know, for them to not giving her a positive response, right? And then even if a woman, you know, initiated sex in a way by asking for something new rather than the normal routine that she had sex with her partner, she was confronted, you know, about how and when did you learn about this? Did you have an affair or something?
Yes.
Right. So there is also what I'm trying to say, you know, overall there is no win-win situation for female sexuality, because unless we all become educated and we all become aware of the importance of it.
And there are many women who are educated,
Right.
and who do feel comfortable and with their sexuality. And we're not trying to say that this is ubiquitous throughout um, females worldwide, or even in the United States. However, the number of people who are affected is still way high.
Well, let me give you some of that stat. It will blow your mind away.
Okay.
Because when I thought the same, even though I am in sex research, when I saw this stat, I was like, jaw drop for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So according to a charitable organization, Sexual Advice Association, which is one of the really reliable, research area about sexuality, every 1 in 3 young and middle-aged women and 1 in 2 older women across the globe are dealing with sexual problems. So go figure.
So 1/3 of the younger and 2/3 of the older.
2/3 of older. Younger, by that means from the day that they become sexual until probably about age maybe 30, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then older is 30 or 35 after.
Uh-huh.
So that's how much all combined together.
Yeah.
Close to half.
Yeah. Yeah.
Close to half of women globally are experiencing sexual difficulties, sexual challenges.
This is a global thing?
This is global. Here it says, globe, across the globe are dealing with sexual problems.
Right.
And this was like 3 days ago. I downloaded this 3 days ago. I mean, that's scary, right? So some of the common, health issues are loss of libido, orgasm problem, vaginismus, which is the profound and the prime sexual pain disorder, bacterial, infection, and then among other ones that we already we pointed out to them. So when I get such an article within 3 days of its publication, it gives me chills in my body.
Yeah.
It doesn't make me feel comfortable. And I myself, as a sex researcher, as a sexologist, as somebody who does sex therapy, as somebody that I talk about sex every day with my clients, I feel, oh my God, there is so much more for me to do here. And sometimes, I get kind of upset and I get disappointed. I feel sad, do I have enough time to educate women? How am I going to be able to, I feel kind of helpless. How am I going to be able to alarm them about how much education they need to have about their bodies, about their feelings, about the fact that sex is natural and sex is one of the main elements of their life, and they need to understand that, and women need to cherish that and to appreciate that about themselves.
Yeah, yes.
And I feel so powerless that, I needed to have maybe, 1,000 of me with my passion to be out there, to help women to understand their sexuality and, their sexual health to begin with. See, I don't want to bring the commercial part in it, but the reality is that female sexual health is shadowed under so much commercials, like sex toys, like, the lotions, like the outfit and all of that. Well, that is, to me, not that this is not important, but that's so secondary, because if a female doesn't understand her body, doesn't understand her sexuality, no matter what kind of a sexual outfit, no matter what sort of a sexual setting the woman can face, herself in, she's not going to be able to enjoy it fully.
Correct. Yeah.
A woman can have the most profound sexual experience on the couch with a t-shirt, and they wouldn't need to have anything else. If she's aware of how much, her sexuality is vital to her health.
Right.
We don't need all those additives.
You said with a t-shirt?
With a t-shirt or without a t-shirt.
How about without a t-shirt?
Without a t-shirt,
Yeah. So basically, I think...
Am I talking too revealing here?
No.
No, okay.
No. Not at all. Basically, what we're talking about is seeing women as equals in being a sexual person.
Right.
and and that's, you know, when you say, do you have enough time? Well, there's you know, billions of people, so there's no way that you're going to be able to educate billions of people.
And no, that's why I'm here. That's why you're here.
And there's more being born all the time.
Right.
Right. But what we can do is we can invite people to educate themselves, and as they do, then they can pass that along to other women.
Exactly.
And to their daughters and granddaughters, to help move it along in terms of creating that sense of equality.
Right.
You know, not that we are the same equal, but that we are equal in terms of the way we need to be treated and honored. Exactly. with respect to our sexuality.
Exactly. And then, you know, when I talk to women, they bring it on their, and they blame it on their upbringing. Well, yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
Upbringing has a profound impact, and probably that's our very first place that we get our education from. Right. So that's one area we need to look into, which I like to talk about that in another program, because we are at the end of our program. I'm going to be talking to professionals who are involved in the healthcare of people. Right. So we need to enforce the fact that, you know, sexual health is a major part of, you know, component of the human health altogether.
Absolutely.
Which I know that's been, you know, ignored by physicians, other therapists, other psychologists, psychiatrists, you know, any people that they are involved in the healthcare of people.
So I want to say we're about to end our program. We're going to be followed by another program given by Dr. Mitra and myself, and we're going to be talking next hour about PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and we invite you to join us.
Yes, we see you right at the hour, 4 o'clock, and we continue with this journey with us. Thank you.
Bye-bye.